For Complex News, I'm Piers Simpson. After 3 debates, countless rallies, and months on the campaign trail, the most important presidential election of our lifetime has come to an end. Joe Biden received more votes than any candidate in U.S. history, reaching over 70 million. Even in the midst of a pandemic, over 150 Americans cast their votes to let their voices be heard.
More Americans voted this election than ever before in American history. Over 150 million people cast their votes,
marking a record for the highest voter turnout since 1900. It took 5 days for the country to anxiously await this painfully close race to come to an end. At the time of this recording, Joe Biden beat Donald Trump with 279 electoral votes to his 213, and a nearly 4 million vote lead in the popular vote. As counting continues, Biden is on track to secure Arizona and Georgia, which will give him 306 electoral votes. For context, 306 to 232 was the same margin between Trump and Hillary Clinton in 2016, although Trump lost the popular vote by 3 million votes. This wasn't a close race once all the votes were counted. Trump took some obvious Sun Belt states such as Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, and Florida, but ultimately, it was Biden's ability to flip a handful of states Trump won in 2016 that secured his win. The Biden campaign successfully flipped Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, and again is on the verge of securing Georgia and Arizona. Based on polls containing the coronavirus was of the utmost importance to many voters, even more so than state of the economy, racial injustice, climate change, and foreign policy. While addressing his supporters on election night, Biden spoke of the importance of containing the virus and assured the nation that this would be his #1 priority upon being sworn into office. In addition to containing the pandemic, Biden stressed the importance of unity, urging the American people to come together and listen to one another during this polarizing climate. While it seems near impossible to put into words just how America is feeling, I think we all as a country have been waiting to take a sigh of relief amidst this chaotic year. Biden's win seemingly is that sigh of relief for many, but it's clear that the country is extremely divided. Simply put, there's still work to be done. Just look at what happened in Georgia. Voter suppression in the state cost Stacey Abrams the governorship in 2018, but instead of running again, she decided to dedicate her time to registering 800,000 new voters, which in turn helped flip the state in Biden's favor.
Anytime someone has power, they are unlikely to give it up. I mean, that's what the entire Marvel and DC universes are about. And so you've got Thanos on the Republican Party collecting the Infinity Stones of voter suppression and using it to basically wipe out half of the electorate, saying you don't get to vote. Well, we've got to be the Avengers who assemble ourselves, not because we all have the same powers or the same beliefs or even from the same place, but we know that if we don't work together to take that gauntlet back, then we are going to be erased from the history and from the future of our country. That's why this matters.
Damn, that was an amazing analogy. I am so impressed.
Thank you.
90% of Georgia's voters 18 to 29 voted for Biden. Stacey is tapped into the youth. And we can't talk about her efforts without mentioning Clayton County, part of the 5th Congressional District formerly represented by the late great John Lewis. Clayton County, along with the efforts by Stacey Abrams, undeniably pushed Biden ahead in Georgia. This was an impressive win for Joe Biden. Mail-in ballots saved the day, essentially causing Donald Trump to cry wolf. For months, Trump downplayed COVID-19 even after contracting it and causing an outbreak in the White House. And for weeks, Trump told his supporters not to vote by mail. It turns out both of those things led to his demise. While Trump had a higher turnout this go-around than he did in 2016, his rhetoric drove historic numbers of voters out to the polls. Now, he'll be wasting everyone's time in these frivolous lawsuits and complaints, one of which Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford called, quote, garbage, unquote. Donald Trump, unsurprisingly, is going out disgracefully, kicking and screaming about voter fraud in states in which mail-in ballots chipped away at his leads. According to him, the American system of democracy is robbing him of his presidency with no evidence to back up his baseless claims. His campaign filed lawsuits in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada, and Georgia in an attempt to stop counting mail-in ballots, a move that has no basis in reality. Had he been winning, those lawsuits wouldn't have been filed. Pennsylvania's Democratic Governor Tom Wolf described the lawsuit as disgraceful and completely wrong. Trump's suits prompted a group in Detroit to surround a ballot location while chanting, "Stop the count," and they didn't stop there. 2 armed Trump supporters in a Hummer were arrested as they tried to make their way to the Pennsylvania Convention Center, where votes were being tallied. On the flip side, protesters in New York and Philadelphia have taken to the streets to call for every vote to be counted. Trump is also demanding a recount in Wisconsin and Georgia. Donald Trump won't go away quietly, that much is true. He refuses to believe his time is done, that the American people have spoken just like they did in 2016. Thankfully, that's not the way things work. Donald will be escorted out if he tries to overstay his welcome, as per the Biden campaign. As we said on July 19th, the American people will decide this election. and the United States government is perfectly capable of escorting trespassers out of the White House. This came from Andrew Bates, a Biden spokesperson, on Friday. In the midst of this chaos that Trump and the Republicans seem to thrive in, the president-elect remained patient while pushing for unity, just as he has been his entire campaign.
And there will be no blue states and red states when we win, just the United States of America.
Although we are now in the process of moving past this incredibly taxing election, now is not the time to take a break from fighting a good fight. We can't afford to return to our regularly scheduled programming until 2024. If there's one thing 2020 has exposed, is that we have a ton of work to do. Voting Donald Trump out of office was the first step in a very long journey to reform and equality amongst all American citizens. Trump's cult following is very, very real, and the mess he's created is not going to disappear just because he's out of the White House. Immigrant families are still being broken up at the border, with 545 undocumented children still being orphaned. American citizens are still being unlawfully brutalized by police, with a disproportionate amount of them being Black people. Women and LGBTQ rights are still at risk. Climate change is still a pressing issue, and COVID is still here. Joe Biden was in office when the U.S. started ramping up immigration, and he was there when Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown set off the Black Lives Matter movement. We must hold whoever is in office accountable. While things may seem grim ahead, we still hold the power. Ultimately, we, the people, shape our communities if we take time to pay attention and protect those rights. Invoking change shouldn't be problematic, but we've been brought up to believe it's beyond our understanding to participate in legislative affairs. It's important that we continue to educate ourselves and our local elected officials so that we stay ahead of the game and are not faced with challenges brought about by leaders who are far removed from the issues we care about. The harsh reality is that a lot of us still remain oblivious to all the different facets of our local government and national government. According to a national poll conducted by Study Finds, only 2 in 5 Americans could name at least one local member of Congress. They also found that only 45% of adults will recognize their governor if they saw them in person. As the work continues, let us pause and acknowledge the impactful wins. We took huge strides towards a more inclusive America this election season. We've made history with Sarah McBride, the first openly transgender state senator. Additionally, Richie Torres and Mondaire Jones made history as the first openly gay Black man elected to Congress. Registered nurse Cori Bush won a U.S. representative seat in Missouri's 1st congressional district, making her the first Black woman from the state elected to Congress. Those are just a handful of historic wins moving our country forward. The American people will have to continue their grassroots efforts of keeping politicians on both sides held accountable. The Democrats must listen to our demands and wishes, or they'll be held accountable. The GOP needs to build themselves back up after embarrassingly enabling Donald Trump and his lies for 4 years. Joe Biden is our new president. We know he's not our savior. We know that he wrote the '94 crime bill. We know that Kamala played a role in America's broken criminal justice system. But what we also know is the unhinged tweets that cause the stocks to drop and the chaotic style in which Trump leads are a thing of the past. We deserve some type of stability in that regard at the very least. There's already enough on our plates. We know the rest of 2020 will continue to be an uphill battle, but we have to keep striving for a better tomorrow. It's like the late great John Lewis said, do not get lost in the sea of despair. Be hopeful, be optimistic. Our struggle is not a struggle of a day, a week, a month, or a year. It is a struggle of a lifetime. Never ever be afraid to make some noise and get in good trouble, necessary trouble. For Complex News, I'm Pierce Simpson.